So yeah, we're gonna see some stuff.
Pink princess crown.
That's a teddy bear.
Well, welcome to the Ocean Cleanup's new podcast show, Catching Up. I'm joined with Henk van Dalen and Ian Smith. Ian, what is your role here at the Ocean Cleanup?
I am a senior engineer in the River team. I've been working on the Interceptor development and future development of technologies to take plastic out of rivers.
And Henk?
I'm Director Ocean, as we call it here, but basically together with the team working towards cleaning up the oceans. In essence, that means we have an R&D department, engineering department, and an operations division. And I oversee that that's all interlinked and that we work towards our objectives, but also look forward to the scale-up operations we have ahead of us.
And I'm Dan Kooy, and I am the senior video producer here, and our job is to tell the story of the Ocean Cleanup. Well, thank you for sitting with me today, and let's just start with what is happening right now. We're back in the office. We're slowly starting to trickle back in. How does it feel for you, Henk?
Great to be back. I think that the time at home has its benefits, but it also has the part where you start to realize that we are social animals and that our team is great in working together when we're also together. So we're now coming back to the office once a week and just seeing everybody and having that interaction and also the creativity that comes with that's great. So good times.
And you both are healthy and you both survived it okay, family, friends, everybody?
Relatively okay. We had some impact in the family of my wife, which hit home hard. But other than that, my family and myself were in good health.
Good. And Ian, you?
Yep. I got through the lockdown pretty smoothly. Everything went well. I think I'm still getting along with my flatmates, but we'll see what they say about me behind my back.
And Henk, the coronavirus kind of kicked in towards the end of you were on a holiday, right?
Yeah.
And so you kind of had an extended sort of mental, first of all, tell me what your holiday was and how this all kind of fell into line.
So me and my family, we decided to have a sabbatical. We did that at the end of last year, so just before the Christmas we took off. And we went to Australia on a long camper van trip along the coast there. Did that for 2 months, and that was all fine. There was no COVID going on over there then. But we had a stopover in Singapore for a few days and then we flew back. And that was just the period that it was picking up in Singapore. So we followed the restrictions, the guidelines over there, and then we were all okay with that. But when we got back, that was the moment that the Ocean Cleanup said, well, COVID's also coming here, so you have to go in a personal quarantine. It was difficult for me in the beginning to really get back into it because the thing definitely in the Ocean team, we're now in the technology development phase. And there's so much going on, like if you walk around here, you hear people talk, you pick that up, you go, okay, and now you have to kind of catch up by either calling people or reading stuff, and it just doesn't go so quick. So I think that whole catching up phase took a bit longer. But having said that, I think what we did quite quickly as the Ocean team is when the COVID kind of happened, my big concern was that we have quite an international team. And they were stuck in the Netherlands, but they had, for example, parents in Italy or family members in France or in the UK. But also themselves, they needed to make the decision, like, I can still travel now. Do I want to go back to my home country or do I want to stay here? So in the beginning, we really said, let's focus on the personal aspects of the team, make sure we're all checking in with each other and that we're actually doing okay. Because we can talk about work, but if your mind is all over the shop, then that's not going to work. So in the beginning, it was all very much about, how are you doing as a person? What's keeping you busy? How can we help you? And I think that took a lot of time to kind of settle in with the team. So we took about a few weeks to get that all rolling. But once we were all, call it, acquainted with the situation, we all knew, who's doing well, who kind of needs a bit more attention or support. Then that allowed me quickly to go over a bit more into the work aspect in detail. And then it went quite quickly thereafter. But there was definitely some adaptation at the beginning.
I gained an appreciation for Delft and for walking around and for just kind of, not necessarily meditation, but like, taking that personal time and walking around and like really thinking about things. Is there something that you picked up on personally during this time?
Yeah, for me, I've always, the one thing I noticed here, I'm often a lot in meetings or discussions, so you're kind of walking around the whole time, but when you're at home, you can always stick to a desk. So the one thing I found very important is to make sure I move throughout the whole day. So I lay down and work, I sit down, I stand, I walk. But one of the things I actually did quite a bit was realize the fact that you can have a phone call, but it's actually even nicer if you have the phone call whilst you're walking outside, and you know, your thoughts are not so much restricted to the small space you're in. So that was definitely one takeaway. And another stuff I've been working quite a bit was with breath work. Like, I find it very peaceful to zoom into your breath, but also use it as an internal workout. So I also start doing a bit of exercises with that with the team as well. But I noticed if you do that throughout the day, it really influences the way you feel. And you know, it can get you up if you're a bit low on energy. But if you're also a bit in a stressful situation or had something that was quite a big impact, you can use it to calm yourself down again. So that was some cool stuff to do during that period.
So now, Ian, we take this time and we go forward. What does this look like for you?
I think, I think it can be a really positive thing, and I think that's what everyone's been looking from the situation from the start. There's been, in terms of technology development and the engineering team, we've managed to really continue through this tough time. So we've got a lot of projects go on around the world. We work with a lot of partners. We've had the challenge of communicating them throughout the lockdown and still seeing technology being pushed forward, learning how to do things remotely, learning to implement and do operations without being there, which is really good for the team for efficiencies for the future. And in other areas of the river team, people have had the chance to really look at the fundamental processes behind things and say, okay, how can we make this even better in the future? How can we get systems in the water? How can we get the stuff behind the scenes going smoother? So I can see that it could really turn into a positive.
With this virus happening globally in the way that it did, and with it affecting so many people, like one thing, when I say I walk around Delft, I've noticed even in Delft, it's amazing. Like, I walk around and like every day I'm seeing a mask on the ground or by the river, or rubber gloves being thrown, in the middle of a park. How do you think that this will affect the plastic pollution problem going forward?
Yeah, I think this is worrying, to be honest. If you look at of course we need to take the mitigations and measures against COVID, but a lot of it's related again to kind of single-use plastic. If you use it once and throw it away, that's not a very circular way of using stuff. But also the amount is going to increase. And there's also been studies now that not only next to the stuff we use, but we also see the economical impact it's going to have, that companies are now really looking at their balance sheet and saying, okay, how can I produce cheaper or more efficient? And recycling is not necessarily always the cheapest way to do things. So what you're going to see is then if it's cheaper to manufacture something from scratch rather than recycle it, that pile of pollution is going to grow. And then, what happens to that waste stream, we don't always know. Like we're now in a Western country, maybe it's a bit more controlled, but this is a global thing, and it could spiral quite out of control. So I think that's a big concern, and also if you look at the problem of plastic growing, we have the COVID challenges ahead of us, we have the economic problem growing. So if you look at it like that, it's pretty intense. But no, it's not a good development to see this in relation to what we're trying to achieve.
So how much more drive does that give you on the riverside, Ian? Like, in terms of knowing that, in the river, like, because it's connected to land, whereas in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, yes, it all ends up there, but humans don't see it necessarily, the average person, with their own eyes. But we walk along rivers and we see the masks, we see the rubber gloves. How much more of a drive do you think that's going to give the river team? Yeah,
I think everyone is super motivated already at solving this problem, and when you see it get worse, you just want to solve it even more. And hopefully it can also bring in an external viewpoint as well. So the more other people outside of the organization realize, hang on a minute, there's an issue here, the more impact we can have in the long run as well. So it could be a negative impact that brings more attention to the issue as well. But internally, we really want to address the problem, and I think it only makes people more motivated to get solutions that work.
And we take on this problem with continuous improvement and iterative design. Explain what that means to the average person.
Maybe bringing it back one step. I think we often say this, but understanding it is almost a second. So we're trying to clean up the ocean, but there's no reference point. We cannot look at a project next to us and say, oh, they've done it, let's copy, paste and improve. So the one thing we have to do is make sure we fill our blank sheet of ideas with ideas and then start testing them and getting feedback and putting that feedback into better learnings and moving forward. So when we talk about that iterative design that we have over the years, of course, gained a lot of knowledge. So we're past that blank sheet. We definitely have a good solid base of where we're heading. But still, every time we look at something new or a design improvement, we always want to say, okay, let's first engineer it, but also make sure that we test our hypothesis, not only on paper, but probably also physically, and then feed that loop back into our working. So when we talk about iteration, it's really making sure that we try something, okay, the result is either good or bad, that doesn't matter, information comes from it, and we feed that back into our thinking and then continuously improve on the way forward.
But how much of an advantage do we have to be able to do that? I mean, it is something that a lot of companies or organizations don't have the ability to go into the field and learn as you go. Yeah. But yet that's an important aspect of our organization. Like, how cool is that for you?
No, it's cool and it's essential for what we're trying to do. Like, I think if you look on the other side where you say, okay, for example, there's a client, they give you a budget hours, a fixed time frame, and then they say, make it happen. You're always going to be restricted in what you're trying to achieve. Now, the ocean cleanup, we definitely have the ambition to clean the ocean up, so that urgency is there. But we're also saying we want to do it correctly and also with a sustainable eye to the future. And therefore we're becoming our own client. And because we're so passionate about what we do and we really want this to succeed, it's actually the case that helps us to challenge ourselves to make sure we get there in the best way possible. So I think the way we are doing it is good. We're challenging ourselves quite well. Yet on the other hand, it's also good that we don't get too lost in what we're thinking ourselves. So also make sure we involve suppliers, partners to check what we think if that's actually the case. So there's that mix that we're doing, which is good, I would say.
And taking this continuous, learning that we're doing from the field. You've spent a lot of time on the Interceptors, and that's where you've kind of come up with obviously the design going forward. Tell me a little bit about what the future is like for the Interceptors without giving away anything specifically.
Yeah, so I think, and I'm going to tell you all the secrets now. Yeah. No, so similar to what Henk was saying, I think the opportunity our team has had to be involved in the whole process is so valuable. We've been around from the designing this thing from blank sheet of paper, working with a lot of partners to make that possible. But then the same team we have in the office here has also assembled the system, spent weeks on the yard putting this thing together, understanding where the tough parts are, where it's hard, and seeing where we can make that better in the future. Then the same team was also involved in the installation, the setting it up, some of the operation parts. So we've got all of the knowledge of what's good and what's bad, and a surprising amount is what's bad about the machine, of what we can improve going forward. So if you look at the Interceptors we have in the water at the moment, and if you look at what we've done, we've made conveyor belts bigger, we've made the whole system bigger, we've increased the storage. And that's a theme that you can see continuing in the future, because we see huge benefits of that. And also what I mentioned about the assembly in the yard, that was hard work. It's not necessarily suited to some of the yards without specific equipment. You need a lot of different tools. If we can make that simpler, if we can reduce the complexity and reduce the time it takes, we'll be onto a real winner for the scale up of these systems across the globe.
But I think it's very important, like what you said, like for me, experiencing you on the yard was great, because here you are, the guy that's kind of, doing the design and the back end stuff, but you're also being able to be hands-on on the yard, working with the people building it. What is something that you took from that experience that helps you now as you design the next generation?
I think that just being involved in all of the steps in the process is something that's easy to ignore when you're focused on just plastic capture. If you're just focusing on getting stuff out of the water, maybe you forget that someone's got to build this thing. So having experienced tightening 800 bolts 3 times to make sure they were at the correct level of tightness, that's something you remember. And that's something that you can build forwards into the next designs to make things simpler, to reduce the reliance on special tools, to reduce the number of components required while still meeting the other functions. It definitely helps you in the design. And I think adding to that, you've also got the operating on a river. Like it's a weird experience standing on one of these interceptors in the water. These rivers are really bad, and I think everyone who's spent time on them is surprised about how bad they are. There's a weird sense of disappointment when you watch stuff that isn't caught by the interceptor on the areas of the river that's not covered. And you get that extra motivation to think, how can we improve this so that we can catch that extra bit of plastic? It really helps as well. And also just a hatred of things like plastic bags, water hyacinths. How do you design and how do you tweak the design to deal with those? It all really adds up. And we've got a team of about 5 people now who have that direct experience in the engineering team alone, combined with more in the operations team and all of the other parts of the organization. It really gives us the tools to take the design further. And
Ian, what is your sick obsession with bolts?
They are just an important part of the design. They literally hold things together.
Explain to Henk what we're talking about here. Like what
so Dan,
magazine and everything.
Dan spent a lot of time with me during the build of the 002 in Klang, and my job was to make sure that the Interceptor was put up correctly, everything was tightened, everything was ready to go in the water. This happened to involve a lot of bolts, so I talked a lot about them. I talked to Dan a lot about them. He didn't want to know about it. I kept talking. I introduced him to the Bolted Connections monthly magazine, which is a nice...
It's a must read.
It's a real magazine.
Yeah. I hear that Dan's actually a subscriber of this magazine now. I don't know how that may have happened, but it was mainly just to wind Dan up during the build.
Well, you would have loved our first system, Wilson. We actually had every meter, we had about 3 big bolts connecting the screen with the brackets. And the guys at the yard, they were complaining their heads off about it, but you would have had
maybe I would have had a field day. So when I said that we had 800 bolts, next system's going to have at least 2,000.
Wow.
That's not true.
That's a lie. Because you said you want to make it easier.
Yeah. Easier, more enjoyable, same thing, really.
And Henk, you've spent a lot of time on the ocean cleanup yards as well. I think it's the first time I met you was out in Alameda.
For sure, yeah.
And you seem to be there for the builds, you take part in the events, and then you wave goodbye to the systems.
That's my thing.
How does this work out? Like, is this your thing, or do you have the desire to go out? You said you wanted to go out on one.
Yeah. Well, I think I always tend to look at the project also where can you add value, and we've had 2 projects up to now where the engineers have been very busy on the design, the ops team have been busy preparing the operations, and I often feel that definitely in those 2 cases it added value for me to be at the end there, to really make sure you tie those remaining ends together, not physically, but call it in discussion and debate, but also that you're there to make decisions that need to be made because that launch date with the boat is there fixed. So that was the case for these two moments in time. And I don't think, and that also adds that my role is necessarily adding the most value out there. I've done that in the past. Before I joined the ocean cleanup, I worked at a few companies which went offshore quite a bit for construction. So I've gained that knowledge and I can use that now. But I think it's much better often either for engineers to go out there, to, like Ian said, to see the thing real life, to get that real life feedback as well, that you actually see what's happening and you can take that into the next design. Or folks that are really, specialized in how to get the instrumentation working, the data process, that type of stuff. I think I would be motivating and maybe entertaining out there, but I don't think that's what they need.
But being on Alameda and then being at Campbell River, what was the difference that you saw between the 2?
So when we came to Alameda, this was, with Wilson, we took a big step. I think we all realized that. We built a system which was, large in size by itself, but it also was outfitted with all the equipment because we really built up to that moment with the belief that this would be the one that worked, understanding that things were still unknown at the time. So you saw there that the whole operation by itself was quite big. It took us a few months to build that thing all together. It was quite complex, definitely feedback we got and implemented for future improvement. So Alameda was quite robust in size, and if you then looked at also the way we were launching the system, it was also with a lot of attention to what we're trying to achieve. So there was a huge build-up and a huge momentum towards that. So we got the learnings from Wilson back and then said, okay, we're on the right track. We just need to make some small improvements and get out there again. So how can we do that as quick as possible? So then the idea was born, let's simplify the system. And therefore we can not only engineer it quicker, procure it faster, and also build it swifter, but then we can also get out there as soon as possible to make sure we get that feedback in the window we had. So when we then looked at Campbell River, the construction there took a week. So it was just, it was a string of pipe welded together with some mild instrumentation on top of that. And then we launched it and decided that if we take the modular approach by installing the thing offshore, we can actually also tweak it offshore. And Wilson did not have that feature. So that was an important learning we put into Campbell River. So Campbell River was really, when we were waving off the system, it was me and the other engineer, Bart. We were standing there, okay, bye. And there's no fireworks, there were no cameras, that was it. So it was definitely two extremes there, but nonetheless, if you look at what we achieved in 1B in such a short time, so System 1B, and how efficiently it went in Campbell River, that was definitely great to see. A story that comes to mind, I remember coming to Campbell River and we were there with, they had about 5 local guys at the yard, and they were all driving these Zoom booms, they call them, which are like these forklift trucks. And the scene was just similar to Alameda. It was almost surreal. So it was this old abandoned pulp factory. So it looked almost like a movie-ish thing. So we were there, and I remember arriving, and there was a lot going on. And I was kind of like, well, how does it work now? Who leads it? Because the engineer arrived earlier, and he was managing over. And he said, well, there's this guy. He's called Jason. And he leads the stuff, but he's pretty intense. We call him the Tasmanian devil, they said. I said, okay, well, let's see. But then immediately this Jason walks in and he's like, okay, we need to pick up the Zoom boom, we need to do this and that. Bart, you stand over there, Henk, you do this. And I haven't even met the guy. He says, okay, stand there, go this. Okay, here we go. And then off he was. So I thought, man, this Tasmanian devil, he really gets the show running there. But you see with the type of work we were doing then and then the fast track nature we were following, that those people really made the difference to the project. Like hands-on thinking with us and really with the mindset that we want this to happen. And yeah, that was great to see. Also in Alameda, actually.
Which one do you think, I'm curious, this is probably just my own curiosity, but does having the big event attached to, like we do big events here, like we
tend to do.
We tend to have these major like little parties that happen. Does that add pressure or excitement, do you think?
Both, let's put it diplomatically. Well, I think if we looked at Wilson, we had the challenge internally that we knew we needed to fix a date for this launch because there's preparation needed towards that, also with getting all the partners there, making sure everything's arranged. But there was also the part where we were in the project where we couldn't exactly say, okay, it's a date. And I'm also used to an industry where we talk in windows. So you have the opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to launch in, say, 3 weeks' time, and I'm going to narrow it as I get closer because then we have the date there. And within the ocean cleanup, we were kind of saying, okay, let's give me a date. I was like, okay, well, all right. So we fixed the date, and everything was looking smooth then. But as you see with projects which are pretty novel, you can run into surprises. So we had a few leading up to that, and we made it in the end. But it was definitely a ramp up at the end, which put quite some pressure on all of us. But again, if you manage that as a team, you get there in the end. There's also that part of the celebration, which is twice as good. So I think when this Wilson was launched, it was towed out there. There was a great celebration afterwards of what we achieved. So it comes a bit with both, I guess. But
and of course, the river event was something as well. How did you feel leading up to the river event? Do you think that there was a lot of pressure that came on?
Yeah, it was definitely a date that drove a lot of excitement in the team, and in positive and negative ways of like pressure and, oh, this is a great thing to be involved in. And I was actually out in Malaysia dealing with some of the issues that I think the Ocean team also had, like leading up to this event. We wanted to make sure this is all working and up and running by the time we launch it to the world. But what this meant was I came back to Rotterdam 1 week before the event, and everyone had been working super hard here to get the event up and running. There is an insane amount of stuff involved, and that's not even just the ducks. And so everyone has had their own job in their own world running around, and I was like, hey guys, I'm back, can I help out? And all the high profile jobs had gone. The ducks are sorted, the creating a fake current, someone else is working on that. The overall organization is insane. So I was given, I think, the bottom job of the bunch, which was to fill the dumpsters with the rented plastic balls for the ball pits. And it was a fun 3 days. I got to play around in ball pit balls, sit in dumpsters. I had a lot of fun. And then the actual event itself was a really good celebration of all the work that the team had done over the past months. And I think everyone was really pleased to finally be able to talk about the Interceptor to the world.
I noticed that during the river event, people well, I joined the Ocean Cleanup about 2.5 years, but they're always talking about the big event they had back in May. I don't know the year.
The May 11th, the next event.
The next event. And they all said, the thing that happens with a big event, you just, you're told what to do and everybody does it together and will work in the end. And I experienced that with the river event. It was quite cool. Like I noticed you guys handling the ducks and all that stuff. I was appointed security agent, so I got this ear, which was probably the coolest thing I've worn.
Yeah, that's I think the biggest regret I have is not getting a job that got an earpiece. Yeah. And
an earpiece and talking into the sleep.
Next time.
But it's great to see that whole buzz going on. So everybody's working on it, regardless whose project it is or whatever. Everybody's in there. One is standing behind the merchandise area, the other is leading the museum. So now the river event was great there.
Yeah, and it was really good as well, like the ocean team coming along and showing their support to the river team as well, because we've kind of been supporting your big events, and then you come on and you support us in our events. That was also a really nice feature of the event.
And Henk, you were also at another event which happened in Vancouver. You were like the event guy. You should start like a wedding planning company. If this whole ocean cleanup thing ever goes south, there you go. Event planning by Henk van Dalen.
I think I'll die at a young age, but it can be a way to go.
But you were in a rainy day in Vancouver.
Oh yeah, that one, yeah.
How cool was that to come together, and what is the importance of that event to everything we're all doing?
Yeah. So Vancouver event was almost the how do you say, the cherry on the cake, you could say. So we've been out there, we've been doing all this hard work we have a system which is actually performing, capturing the plastic, holding it, and it's coming to shore. And I was actually in Vancouver coincidentally then. I was asked to not only visit a few suppliers there for future operations we're looking at, but also to be at a conference there. So the date was shifting left and right. I was kind of hoping it would fall in that window I was there. So I was lucky on that one. But then when we were there and you see the whole operation, so I actually waved the system goodbye, you could say, in Campbell River, and the boat left. But then the boat came back and the container was offloaded. And then you're there, and it was a bit of a weird feeling, because normally you would expect big events, sun's out, everybody's cheering, but this was dark, rainy, cold, so it was a bit different than when we left. But the first time you open the container and you see it firsthand, what they're actually getting out of the ocean there, and the size of it, and then all the big bags are put out, then you're really like, wow, this is. We talk about the problem. I speak to the engineers. I haven't been offshore firsthand in the patch. But when you see that plastic come back and you realize that this is only a fraction of what we still have to clean, yeah, that hits home hard then. But it's also very good to see that just taking this out is a good act, and we're on a good way there. And that definitely gives a lot of motivation to keep going along this path we're taking.
And it was a good transition going into what you're working on right now. Give us just a sneak peek.
A sneak peek of what we're doing. With the Ocean team, we're now in the development of the second generation of systems. So the focus really is on using all the knowledge we have, yet improving that to make sure we capture more, hold it longer, and also make sure the system's out there a longer period of time. So the one thing that we really also are looking at the moment is the operational model that comes with that. Because in the end, if you just look at the technical aspect of getting plastic out, you're far away from shore. So you could be ideally catching a lot of plastic, but then you still have that logistical challenge of getting it to shore. And if you look at the scale-up ambitions, it's very much about that operational model. How do you get systems out there? How do you get plastic to shore? So one thing that has a big focus now is we want to capture more plastic, but we also want to retain it longer. And then you get into the equation where you have to think about the footprint of your system. So if you just think in a horizontal plane, there's so much plastic you can hold in the system. But if you maybe think vertically, there may be options there that you can actually hold plastic and more plastic for a longer period of time. So that is something that's kind of top of the agenda at the moment. And yeah, we're on a good way, I would say.
Henk, I want to go back a little bit to you, like being like your energy and like how you put that out to your team, both in the office but also in the field. Like, how important do you think that is to a team when they're doing something as big as building in like Campbell River or Alameda, or even just being in a meeting here in Rotterdam?
What I see is I feel definitely within the ocean cleanup there's so much motivation. It's almost just funneling it in the right direction. And I often see that the challenges we're trying to overcome are pretty big at times. Like we have had big setbacks. We've had a system offshore which didn't perform as we wanted. We had it to address that, but also build a new one. So you're almost doing two big projects in parallel. And what you see then with a team which is so passionate about what they do, but you see things that don't go so well and things you would like to see differently, yet you feel so committed that you also put the burden on your own shoulders. It is really making that part, I think it's important that we, like I said, funnel it in the right direction, but also don't make the problem too big as it is. Yes, we're trying to address a problem which is immense and it affects the world, and we'd rather clean it today than say in a year's time. But making sure that we have that correct energy and fun in our work, because we're all clever. I have no doubt about how clever they are. But it's making that combination with having fun, getting the right energy level, and then I feel you see that all funnel into great solutions, but also people that really not only are passionate about what they do, but they find a purpose in it as well. They have fun in doing it, and therefore it also becomes a bit like work, hobbyish. It's not like you say I clock in at 9 and I have to do this, but I'm actually looking forward to getting back to the office, getting back into that energy, and together trying to find a solution here. So.
And I hear from our other camera guy that you're using music a lot to inspire.
Oh, is that so? Yes. There is some music floating around.
Tell me about some of the tracks you're using and why.
So there's always music I like is upbeat. And it needs to give some energy, and we've been talking a little bit about as well. If I go back to my teenage period, then there was definitely rap music, which I found was great. There's a lot of energy and flow around it. So if you look also at the Wu-Tang Clan, just to name it by its name, that music gives you so much energy that's great to do.
So you grew up with rap music. What rap music did you listen to as a little Dutch Henk van Dalen?
As a little Dutch rapper. It all started with I think, skateboarding. So I got into that during my teenage years, and skateboarding quickly evolved into surfing. But definitely during the skateboarding time, there was a kind of this vibe going on about underground rap music. And in Holland, you had something called the Osdorp Posse. And it's bigger than Wu-Tang Clan. It's a bit more Dutch. But they were actually from the streets of Amsterdam. They were rapping about all types of stuff. But they had one main rapper called Def P, and he was quite funny in his lyrics and doing all this stuff. But then you actually realize outside of Holland there's even more. So then you start to open that bag of opportunities there. And then the Wu-Tang Clan, I think, kind of came out. They had that first CD, Protect Your Neck. And I remember being in a skate store, so actually a vivid memory, and that skate store was so dark that when you bought something there and you went outside, you only realized what color it was that you bought something. So I one time bought blue shoes, but then I walked out and I was like, holy shit, it's actually green. That's how dark it was in there. But they also had this small CD booth where you could kind of just check out some new music. So every once in a while you had a bit of money left. And then I picked up this Wu-Tang CD from Protect Your Neck, and that was life-changing, What is it, 10 guys really full energy, giving it their all, and
yeah,
cool, man.
Ian, did you have anything like that growing up in England?
No, everyone was just listening to classical music, watching addresses of the Queen on TV, and drinking tea. It was pretty standard childhood.
So it's exactly as everyone else in the world pictures
pretty
it?
Much, yeah.
What inspired you growing up? What was your thing?
What inspired me? I don't know. I guess the equivalent of Henk's story growing up was, in terms of music, was I was the kind of pretentious music liker who decided that, okay, I'm going to be in a rock band, I'm going to play bass guitar with my friends, and the only real like rock music is in the past. And then I was that annoying pretentious kid who denied that music was good. And then when I turned 18, I was like, what an idiot. And then that opened up a world of music to me. So now I'll basically listen to anything, enjoy anything. I get some complaints from people that I feel my music is the opposite of Henk's. Bleak, depressing, turn it off. Why do you listen to this? Are kind of common things associated with my music choices, but they inspire me in my own way. So long story short, it's S Club 7. Yeah.
Henk, in your time here, what has been the highlight for you?
The highlight, there have been many, and it seems almost like a continuous one. Eh? So I always say it's difficult to find one. One that pops to mind was we were at Campbell River. We had the whole system ready to deploy, but then the weather picked up, so we decided to wait for the next day. But we really gave it our all, and we were sitting there in this big warehouse in the middle of nowhere, basically. And there was actually reindeers walking around a bit as well, because Canada, of course, being a bit wild as it is. So we were walking past. Early on the day, we saw a raccoon, which did eat up the lunch of one of the guys at the yard, so he wasn't too happy, but I thought it was pretty cool to see. But I remember sitting there pretty worn out about the whole thing, but you had the view of the pipe close to the water. There was this beautiful backdrop of pine trees and then hilly surroundings. And then you thought, man, this is actually why we're doing it as well. It's all this hard work we're putting in, but also being in an area where you see how volatile nature and how fragile it can also be. It gave a kind of sense of rewarding feeling then, that you just sit there and you go, put a lot of hard work in, but it feels good. It's for the right reasons. So
Highlights for you?
I think a highlight, at least a crazy situation that never leaves my mind, is when we did the installation day of the 002 in Malaysia. We transported the Interceptor that we'd spent many weeks building, and there was lots of challenges associated with that. But the reflection on the sort of nature surrounding the problem is also really interesting. And we took this boat trip from the yard where we built the Interceptor 002 to the installation site probably 20 times. And it's this river in Malaysia that has this amazing turns, and you can just see what used to be there before all of the plastic pollution was incredible. You've got a lot of wildlife, even with the situation it is. You've got monkeys jumping around, there's these crazy lizards swimming about. We transported up the river, and there was a bit of a kind of controlled but chaotic atmosphere around. We had lots of different boats going all over the place. The operation itself went very smoothly, and we were really pleased with it. But there was the sense of what we'd actually done then when we ended the day with this Interceptor in the water in the middle of a city in Malaysia was a really good experience that will stay with me.
How do you feel like the future is going?
I think the key thing is to keep developing the technology, keep learning why stuff is passing the system, how do we get more out of the water, how do we make it more efficient, more cost effective, and I think the team has that knowledge to be able to push the technology further.
And Henk, same question. How do you think the future looks for the ocean side of this?
So for us, we are at the verge of something big. So we've gotten, call it that, the belief that what we're pursuing is possible. So that was generation 1. Now with generation 2, we're scaling up the technology. After that comes the scale up of the whole thing. So this really is a point where we are getting to even bigger stuff. And the fact that we are progressing as we are at the moment doesn't mean we're there yet, but we're definitely having that momentum. Shows that we're on the right track. So I have confidence that where we are heading is in the right direction, and to achieve what we want, and we definitely want to achieve those clean oceans, it's going to get bigger. And we need to put our full effort in to get there. But the fact that we're going to clean those oceans, I'm very confident about.
Well, thanks both of you for catching up with us.
What a name.
Thanks for catching up with us as well.
Yeah, good luck in the coming months getting back to normal and getting things going again. And to everyone listening at home and watching us, thank you guys for your support, and please keep sending us questions and watching this show and doing everything you guys do for us. We really appreciate it because we couldn't be doing any of this if it wasn't for you guys. So thank you.
This is a lot of fun, by the way. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. We got plenty, so
Good.
enjoy your day. Good luck getting back to it, and yeah, good stuff.